The celebration lights of Nexus Prime filled the dark space around the massive orbital station. Ships from 7 different worlds hung in formation, their hulls gleaming with victory decorations. Inside the station's great hall, beings from across the galaxy raised their various appendages in triumph. Admiral Corvex stood at the center of it all, his blue-scaled skin catching the light as he spoke to the crowd. The Zephyrian commander had led the final battle against the Kreth, and now he savored the moment of peace. "Today marks the end of the Kreth War," Corvex announced, his voice carrying through translation devices to every species present. "After 20 years of fighting, after losing countless worlds and billions of lives, we have finally crushed the insect threat. The galaxy is safe." The crowd erupted in cheers. Commander Lyra of the Meridian Republic waved her webbed hands, her gills fluttering with excitement. Her people had suffered greatly during the war, watching helplessly as Kreth swarms attacked their underwater colonies. Now her children could swim in peace. At another table, the crystalline Vortani delegate pulsed with satisfied light patterns. The Vortani communicated through color changes in their mineral bodies, and right now they glowed with pure joy. Their mining worlds had been constant targets, and many crystal cities had been shattered by Kreth attacks. "The threat is over," Corvex continued. "Our combined fleets have destroyed every Kreth Hive ship. Our energy weapons proved superior to their crude biological attacks. We have shown that civilized species will always triumph over mindless destroyers." The celebration continued for hours. Species that had been enemies before the war now shared drinks and stories. The Zephyrians passed around bottles of their famous blue wine. The Meridians offered kelp cakes from their ocean farms. Even the normally quiet Vortani shared rare gems as gifts. But far away from the party, in the depths of space near the galaxy's edge, something else was happening. Deep Space Monitoring Station Outpost 7 floated alone in the void. The small facility was staffed by just 3 beings. Their job was to watch for any remaining Kreth activity. Lieutenant Vex, a young Zephyrian, stared at his screen with growing worry. "Sir, I'm picking up some strange readings," he called to his commander. Commander Zek swam over in his water tank. As a Meridian, he needed the liquid environment to survive. "What kind of readings, Lieutenant?" "Energy signatures, sir. But they don't match anything in our database. They're not Kreth technology, and they're not from any of our allied species either." Zek studied the data through his tank's viewing screen. The readings showed massive energy sources moving through space at incredible speeds. Whatever was generating these signals was far larger than any ship in the galactic fleet. "Could be sensor ghosts," Zek suggested. "The war's over, Lieutenant. Maybe you're seeing echoes from old battles." But Lieutenant Vex wasn't convinced. He had studied Kreth technology for years, and this was something completely different. These energy patterns were too organized, too purposeful to be random signals. Far from the monitoring station, a lone human ship drifted through an unexplored system. The vessel was small and simple compared to the alien warships built from Earth materials and human engineering. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his pilot's chair, reviewing sensor data from his latest survey mission. Earth had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. While the other species had been fighting the Kreth War, humans had been taking their first careful steps into the galaxy. They had watched the conflict from a distance, learning about the various alien civilizations, but staying out of the fighting. Jake's ship, the New Frontier, was one of only a dozen human vessels exploring deep space. His mission was simple: map new systems and gather information about the galaxy beyond Earth. It was quiet work, but Jake enjoyed the solitude and the sense of discovery. His computer suddenly beeped with an alert. Jake looked at his screen and frowned. His sensors were picking up the same strange energy readings that Lieutenant Vex had detected. But from Jake's position on the outer rim, he could see something that the aliens couldn't. The energy sources weren't random. They were moving in formation, heading directly toward populated space. Whatever was generating these signals was traveling faster than anything should be able to move, covering vast distances in impossible time. Jake quickly ran the readings through his ship's computer. The analysis made his blood run cold. These weren't ships using normal faster-than-light drives. This was something that could bend space itself, moving through dimensions that human science barely understood. He immediately sent a message toward the inner systems, trying to warn the Galactic Alliance about what he had found. But space was vast, and his transmission would take time to reach them. Jake could only hope that someone would listen to the warnings of a primitive human explorer. Back on Nexus Prime, a celebration was winding down. Admiral Corvex stood on the observation deck, looking out at the peaceful fleet formations. Commander Lyra joined him, her breathing apparatus allowing her to survive in the station's atmosphere. "It's hard to believe it's really over," she said. Corvex nodded. 20 years of constant fighting. Entire generations have known nothing but war. Now we can finally rebuild. My people are already planning new colonies, Lyra continued. Deep ocean worlds that were too dangerous to settle during the war. Our children will have safe places to grow. The Zephyrian admiral smiled. His own species was making similar plans. With the Kreth threat ended, they could expand their territory and develop new technologies for peaceful purposes instead of weapons. "The galaxy has learned an important lesson," Corvex said. "When civilized species work together, no enemy can stand against us." The Kreth were savage and numerous, but they couldn't match our advanced technology and tactical intelligence. Neither of them noticed the small alert that flashed briefly on the station's communication board. Jake Morrison's warning message had finally arrived, but the duty officer dismissed it as irrelevant chatter from an unknown source. After all, the war was over. What could a single human possibly know that the combined intelligence of 7 species had missed? 3 systems away, Lieutenant Vex was still monitoring his sensors. The strange energy readings were getting stronger, and now he could detect multiple sources. Whatever was out there was getting closer to inhabited space. "Commander Zek," he called urgently. "The readings are intensifying. I count at least 12 separate energy sources, all moving toward the inner systems." Zek swam over to look at the data again. This time, he couldn't dismiss what he was seeing. The readings were too strong and too organized to be sensor errors. "Send a priority message to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have unknown contacts approaching from the outer rim." But even as he gave the order, Zek wasn't truly worried. The galaxy had just won the greatest war in its history. The combined fleets had proven their superiority over any possible threat. Whatever these energy readings represented, they would handle it the same way they had handled the KRETH in the depths of space. Far beyond the reach of any sensor, something ancient stirred. The Devourers had been sleeping for millions of years, waiting for the right conditions to wake. The energy signatures from the recent galactic war had finally reached them, triggering protocols that had been dormant since before any current civilization existed. The machines began to move, their massive forms shifting through dimensions that organic minds could barely comprehend. They had a purpose, a function that had driven them across the universe for eons. The galaxy had grown too large, too active. It was time to restore balance. The war the galaxy thought was over had been nothing more than a minor disturbance. The real test was about to begin, and none of the celebrating species had any idea what was coming for them. Only one human, drifting alone in his small ship, had caught a glimpse of the approaching storm. But his warnings had fallen on deaf ears. dismissed by beings who thought they knew everything about war and victory. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. 3 months had passed since the victory celebration on Nexus Prime. The galaxy was finally at peace, or so everyone believed. Trade routes reopened between worlds that had been cut off during the war. Construction crews worked day and night to rebuild damaged colonies. Children who had never known anything but conflict began to play in streets that were finally safe. Admiral Corvex stood in his command center on the flagship Stellar Pride, reviewing reports from across Zephyrian space. New settlements were being established on planets that had been too dangerous to colonize during the Kreth War. His people were expanding faster than ever before. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call from the outer colonies," his communications officer announced. Corvex frowned. The outer colonies were peaceful mining worlds on the edge of Zephyrian territory. What kind of trouble could they possibly have? "Put it through," he ordered. The message was broken and filled with static. Through the interference, Corvex could hear panic in the voice of Colony Administrator Wrath. "Unknown ships approaching our system. They're massive, bigger than anything we've ever seen. Our defense platforms are trying to establish contact, but they're not responding to any standard frequencies." The transmission cut off abruptly. Corvex immediately ordered his fastest ships to investigate. Captain Vorth led a patrol squadron of 6 vessels toward the outer colonies. These were experienced warships that had fought in the final battles against the Kreth. Their crews were confident and ready for anything, but they weren't ready for what they found. Captain Vorth's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and immediately activated all sensors. What appeared on his screens made no sense. 3 planets that should have been bustling with mining activity were completely dark. No energy readings, no communications, no signs of life at all. "Captain, I'm detecting debris fields where the defense platforms should be," his sensor officer reported. "But the debris doesn't match our technology. It looks like it's been broken down into basic components." Vorth ordered his squadron to advance cautiously. As they moved deeper into the system, they encountered something that defied explanation. Geometric shapes floated in space where the mining colonies had been. These weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were perfect mathematical forms that seemed to shift and change as his sensors tried to focus on them. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Vorth of the Zephyrian Navy," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came not as words, but as action. The geometric shapes suddenly moved, accelerating toward his squadron at impossible speeds. Vorth ordered his ships to fire their energy weapons, the same weapons that had been so effective against the Kreth. The energy beams struck the approaching forms and simply disappeared. The weapons that had destroyed countless Kreth bioships had no effect whatsoever. Worse, the strange vessels seemed to analyze each attack, their forms shifting and adapting in real time. "Captain, they're not just absorbing our weapons," his tactical officer shouted. "They're learning from them. Each shot we fire makes them stronger." The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in minutes. The geometric forms enveloped Vorth's ships, and the proud vessels simply came apart. Not destroyed by explosions or weapons fire, but methodically disassembled at the molecular level. The crews had just enough time to send a final desperate message before their ships were reduced to component materials. Admiral Corvex received the transmission on his flagship and felt his blood turn cold. The message was brief and terrifying. "They're not ships. They're machines. Ancient machines that eat technology. They've taken everything. The colonies, the defense platforms, our ships. They're heading toward the inner systems. They can't be stopped." Similar reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Meridian Republic lost 3 entire underwater cities in a single day. Commander Lyra watched helplessly from her command ship as the ocean worlds she had sworn to protect were systematically drained of all technology. The bioships that her people had evolved over centuries were broken down into basic organic compounds. The Vortani suffered even worse losses. Their crystal cities, grown over thousands of years, were harvested like crops. The geometric forms seemed particularly interested in their mineral-based technology, absorbing entire mountain ranges of living crystal in hours. Every species tried their most advanced weapons. The Zephyrians unleashed energy blasts that could crack planets. The Meridians deployed bioweapons that had never failed to adapt to any threat. The Vortani focused the power of entire star systems through their crystal networks. Nothing worked. The machines adapted to every attack, learned from every strategy, and grew stronger with each encounter. They didn't fight like any enemy the galaxy had ever faced. They simply absorbed and processed, turning the civilization's own technology against them. Captain Jake Morrison was still in deep space when the attacks began. His primitive sensors couldn't detect the geometric forms directly, but he could see the results. Entire star systems were going dark, their energy signatures vanishing from his instruments. Jake immediately changed course, pushing his small ship toward Earth as fast as his engines could manage. He had tried to warn the galaxy about the approaching threat, but no one had listened. Now it was too late for warnings. It was time to prepare for the worst. As Jake traveled through space, he intercepted dozens of panicked transmissions from the various alien species. The messages all told the same story. Advanced civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were being systematically destroyed by enemies they couldn't understand or fight. Back in the inner systems, the surviving fleets tried desperately to form defensive lines. Admiral Corvex gathered every remaining Zephyrian ship at the Nexus Prime station. Commander Lyra brought her bioship fleet from the deep ocean worlds. The Vortani focused their remaining crystal ships into a single massive formation. "We've faced threats before," Corvex announced to the combined fleet commanders. "The Kreth were savage and numerous, but we defeated them through superior tactics and technology. These machines may be advanced, but they're still just machines. We can find a way to beat them." But even as he spoke, Corvex knew he was wrong. The reports from the outer systems painted a picture of an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. These weren't invaders seeking conquest or resources. They were something far more terrifying, a force of nature that consumed technology itself. The first geometric forms appeared at the edge of the inner systems, just as the alien fleets finished their preparations. The machines had grown larger, more complex, incorporating technology from every world they had consumed. They moved through space without any visible propulsion, shifting through dimensions that the galaxy's best scientists couldn't understand. The combined fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of ships unleashed weapons that could destroy entire planets. The space around the geometric forms lit up with energy blasts, plasma bolts, and exotic matter streams. For a moment, it seemed like the concentrated firepower might have an effect. Some of the smaller geometric forms seemed to waver under the assault, but then they began to adapt. The machines absorbed the energy, analyzed the weapons, and restructured themselves to be immune to further attacks. The battle turned into a slaughter. Ships that had survived the entire Kreth War were taken apart like toys. Crews that had faced down swarms of savage insects found themselves helpless against enemies that turned their own technology against them. Admiral Corvex watched his flagship systems shut down one by one as a geometric form enveloped his ship. His last act was to send a message toward Earth, toward the primitive human who had tried to warn them. "You were right," he transmitted. "They're not just machines. They're something ancient, something that sees our technology as a threat to be eliminated. If anyone can stop them, it won't be us. Our weapons only make them stronger. You need a different approach, something they haven't seen before. The transmission ended as the stellar pride was broken down into its component atoms. Jake Morrison received the message just as Earth came into view through his ship's viewport. The blue and green world looked peaceful and primitive compared to the advanced civilizations he had left behind. But perhaps that primitiveness would prove to be humanity's greatest advantage. The machines had easily defeated species with millions of years of technological development. But they had never encountered humans, a species that had learned to fight and survive not through superior technology, but through stubborn determination and the ability to think in ways that no logical enemy would expect. As Jake approached Earth's orbital defenses, he sent a priority message to military command. The galaxy's great civilizations were falling, their advanced technology turned against them by an enemy that adapted to every conventional attack. But humans weren't conventional. They never had been. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to save not just Earth, but what remained of the galaxy itself. Captain Jake Morrison's ship approached Earth's orbital defenses at maximum speed. The blue planet looked peaceful compared to the horror he had witnessed in the outer systems. But Jake knew that peace wouldn't last long. The machines were coming, and they would consume Earth just like they had consumed every other world in their path. General Lisa Campbell stood in the Pentagon's command center, staring at the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. As Earth's top military commander, she had seen many threats before, but nothing like this. Entire civilizations with technology far beyond human understanding were being destroyed in a matter of hours. General, Captain Morrison is requesting immediate landing clearance, her aide announced. He says he has critical information about the enemy. Clear him for landing at Andrews Base, Campbell ordered. I want to hear what he has to say in person. An hour later, Jake sat across from General Campbell and her senior staff. His face was grim as he described what he had seen in the outer systems. They're not like anything we've ever fought, Jake explained. These machines adapt to whatever weapons you use against them. The aliens tried everything. Energy weapons, bioweapons, even reality-bending crystal technology. Nothing worked. The machines just absorbed it all and became stronger. Colonel Ryan Hayes, Campbell's chief strategist, leaned forward. You're telling us that species with millions of years of technological advancement couldn't stop them? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Jake replied. Their technology became their weakness. The more advanced their weapons, the more the machines had to learn from and adapt to. We saw Admiral Korvex's final message. He said we need a different approach, something the machines haven't encountered before. General Campbell studied the tactical reports on her screen. The alien civilizations had fought with precision and advanced technology. Their battles followed logical patterns that any military computer could analyze and counter. Colonel Hayes, what do we have that they don't? Campbell asked. Hayes thought for a moment. Chaos, General. Pure, unpredictable human chaos. Our entire military doctrine is based on adapting to impossible situations with whatever resources we have available. We don't rely on perfect technology because we've never had it. Campbell nodded slowly. Get me Admiral Rodriguez and Colonel Martinez. If we're going to fight these things, we're going to do it the human way. Commander Amy Rodriguez had served in 3 different wars before taking command of Earth's space fleet. Her ships weren't sleek and advanced like the alien vessels. They were built tough and simple, designed to keep fighting even when half their systems were damaged. What do we know about these machines? Rodriguez asked as she reviewed the tactical data. They adapt to conventional military tactics, General Campbell explained through the communication link. Every species that fought them used logical, predictable strategies. We need to do the opposite, Rodriguez grinned. You want us to fight like pirates instead of a proper navy. Exactly. Use civilian ships, mining equipment, cargo haulers. Anything that doesn't look like a military threat. Attack in ways that make no tactical sense. The plan that emerged was unlike anything in military history. Instead of forming battle lines and engaging the enemy directly, Earth's forces would scatter across the solar system using every available vessel. Cargo ships would be fitted with mining explosives. Passenger liners would carry missile launchers. Even small personal spacecraft would be armed with whatever weapons could be bolted to their hulls. Lieutenant Chris Parker, a former demolitions expert, found himself commanding a converted garbage hauler loaded with industrial explosives. His crew consisted of a retired mechanic, 2 college students, and a taxi pilot from Mars Colony. This is insane, the mechanic muttered as they attached mining charges to their ship's hull. We're going to fight ancient supermachines with trash haulers and homemade bombs. That's the point, Parker replied. They expect logical military tactics. We're going to give them something completely different. The first test came when a lone geometric form entered the outer solar system. It was smaller than the massive machines that had destroyed the alien fleets, probably a scout sent ahead to analyze Earth's defenses. Commander Rodriguez watched from her flagship as the machine approached. Earth's orbital defense platforms remained completely silent, their weapons powered down. To any observer, the planet looked defenseless. The geometric form moved toward Earth, scanning for technology to absorb. It detected the orbital platforms, but dismissed them as primitive and non-threatening. The machine had learned to recognize advanced technology from the alien civilizations it had consumed. Human technology didn't register as a significant threat. That was its first mistake. Parker's garbage hauler approached the machine from what appeared to be a supply run to one of the outer mining stations. The ship's transponder identified it as a civilian waste disposal vessel, nothing that a war machine would consider worth analyzing. As the geometric form focused on scanning Earth's major cities, Parker piloted his ship directly underneath it. At the last second, he ejected his entire cargo bay full of mining explosives and activated the detonators. The explosion wasn't sophisticated. It wasn't an advanced energy weapon or exotic matter blast. It was simple chemical explosives, the kind humans had been using for hundreds of years. The machine's adaptive systems didn't even register the attack as a threat until the crude bombs tore through its hull. For the first time since the war began, one of the machines was destroyed. It worked, Rodriguez breathed, watching the geometric form break apart. The damn thing didn't know how to adapt to such a primitive attack, but the victory was short-lived. Within hours, more machines appeared at the edge of the solar system. They had learned from their scouts' destruction and were now prepared for unconventional tactics. The real battle began when 12 massive geometric forms entered Earth's solar system. These machines had absorbed technology from dozens of worlds and were far more advanced than the Scout. They moved through space in patterns that hurt to look at, bending reality around them as they approached. Earth's scattered fleet engaged them using every trick in the human playbook. Cargo ships appeared from behind asteroids, launching missiles and immediately fleeing. Mining vessels used their drilling equipment as improvised weapons. Even luxury yachts from Earth's wealthy districts joined the fight, their owners piloting. Gold-plated ships loaded with whatever explosives they could find. The machines tried to adapt, but human tactics made no logical sense. A hospital ship would attack with medical lasers one moment, then an ice cream truck converted into a bomber would strike from a completely different angle. The machine's adaptive systems couldn't process the chaos. Captain Sue Bennick piloted a converted school bus that had been launched into space with rocket boosters welded to its frame. Her weapon was a collection of fireworks left over from Earth's Independence Day celebrations. As her makeshift spacecraft approached one of the geometric forms, she lit the fuses and hoped for the best. The fireworks exploded in a shower of sparks and colored lights. By any military standard, it was a completely useless attack. But the machine had never encountered anything like it. Its systems tried to analyze the colorful explosions and failed completely. In that moment of confusion, Bennett rammed her school bus directly into the machine's core. Both the bus and the machine were destroyed, but Bennett's sacrifice created an opening that other human ships exploited. Wave after wave of improvised attacks hit the confused machine until it finally collapsed. The battle raged for hours across the entire solar system. Human ships were destroyed by the dozens, but for every ship lost, the crews managed to damage or confuse their enemies. The machines found themselves fighting an enemy that followed no logical patterns, used no advanced technology, and seemed completely willing to sacrifice everything from minor tactical advantages. Colonel Martinez, monitoring the battle from Earth's command center, watched as the tide slowly turned in humanity's favor. "They're learning to counter our attacks," she reported to General Campbell. "But every time they adapt to one tactic, we switch to something completely different." "How many machines are left?" Campbell asked. "4 major forms, but they're all damaged. Our people are hitting them with everything from modified tractors to exploding birthday cakes." The final machine fell when a group of teenagers from Luna Colony attacked it with homemade rocket-powered bicycles loaded with paint cans full of explosive gel. The absurdity of the attack completely overwhelmed the machine's analytical systems, allowing conventional weapons to finish it off. When the battle ended, Earth's orbital space was filled with debris from both human ships and destroyed machines. The cost had been enormous, with hundreds of civilian volunteers killed in the fighting. But humanity had achieved something that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations couldn't. They had defeated the machines through sheer unpredictability. As news of the victory spread through the few remaining alien outposts, desperate messages began arriving at Earth. The surviving members of the Galactic Alliance were begging for help, asking the primitive humans to teach them how to fight an enemy that their advanced technology couldn't defeat. General Campbell stood in the Pentagon's Communication Center. The holographic display in Earth's command center showed the faces of desperate alien commanders from across the galaxy. Admiral Korvax was dead, his flagship consumed by the machines, but his second-in-command, Captain Zara, had managed to escape with a handful of surviving ships. Commander Lyra floated in her portable water tank, her gills moving rapidly with stress. The few remaining Vortani pulsed with dim, frightened colors. General Campbell looked at each face in turn. These beings had once commanded fleets that could destroy planets. Now they were refugees, begging for help from the species they had considered primitive just months ago. "You want our help," Campbell said simply. "But helping you means you have to fight our way. No more perfect formations. No more logical tactics. You'll have to embrace chaos." Captain Zara's blue scales rippled with discomfort. "General Campbell, with respect, our military traditions go back thousands of years. We cannot simply abandon everything we know about warfare." "Then you'll lose," Campbell replied bluntly. "Your traditions got your fleets destroyed. Your advanced technology made you predictable. The machines learned from your tactics because they made sense. Human tactics don't make sense, and that's why we won." Commander Lyra spoke from her tank. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" Colonel Ryan Hayes stepped forward. "Fight like pirates. Use whatever ships you have left in ways they weren't designed for. Attack when it makes no tactical sense. Retreat when you should advance. Confuse the enemy instead of trying to outfight them." The alien commanders exchanged uncertain glances. Everything Hayes described went against their deepest military instincts. "We'll send human advisors to your remaining fleets," General Campbell announced. "But they'll be in command during combat operations. Your people will have to follow human orders, even when those orders seem completely insane." It was a bitter pill for the proud alien species to swallow, but they had no choice. The machines were still out there, consuming the outer systems and growing stronger with each victory. Without human help, the remaining civilizations would be extinct within weeks. Colonel Beth Martinez was chosen to lead the first joint operation. She had commanded Special Forces units in Earth's most difficult conflicts, and her specialty was unconventional warfare. Martinez took a team of human military advisors and joined the surviving Meridian fleet near their homeworld. The cultural clash was immediate and severe. The Meridians had evolved in Earth's oceans, developing military tactics based on fluid, organic movements. Their bioships moved like schools of fish, coordinating through biological signals that allowed perfect formation flying. "This is how we've always fought," Commander Lyra explained as her ships demonstrated their traditional battle formations. "Our movements flow like water, each ship supporting the others in perfect harmony." Martinez watched the elegant display and shook her head. "It's beautiful, but it's also completely predictable. Any computer could analyze your formation and counter it. We need to teach your people to fight ugly." The first lesson involved breaking the Meridian ships out of their perfect formations. Instead of moving as one coordinated unit, each ship would operate independently, attacking different targets at random intervals. The Meridian pilots found this almost impossible to do. Their instincts screamed at them to coordinate, to move together, to maintain their beautiful formations. "It feels wrong," one pilot complained. "Like swimming against the current instead of with it." "Good," Martinez replied. "If it feels wrong to you, it will be completely incomprehensible to the machines." Lieutenant Tony Clark, one of Martinez's advisors, worked with the Meridian Marine units. These warriors had been trained for underwater combat, using bioweapons that could adapt to any environment. But the machines had already learned to counter adaptive technology. "Forget your bioweapons," Clark told the assembled Marines. "We're going to teach you to fight with rocks and sticks if necessary, primitive weapons that no advanced enemy would ever expect." The Meridians were horrified. They had spent centuries developing their sophisticated bioweapons, and now a human was telling them to use stone tools. "Your bioweapons are too smart," Clark explained. "They adapt and evolve, which means the machines can study them and learn to counter them. But a sharp stick is just a sharp stick. No technology to analyze, no patterns to learn from." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison was working with the few surviving Vortani. These crystal beings communicated through color patterns and fought with mathematical precision. Their weapons channeled energy through living mineral networks, creating attacks that followed perfect geometric patterns. "Your weapons are too precise," Jake explained to the Vortani commander. "Every attack follows a mathematical formula. The machines can predict exactly what you're going to do." The Vortani pulsed with confused colors. Their entire civilization was based on mathematical perfection. The idea of fighting without precise calculations was alien to them. "We need you to fight randomly," Jake continued. "Make decisions based on gut instinct instead of calculations. I know it goes against everything you believe, but it's the only way to survive." The first joint operation took place in the Kepler system, where a group of machines had been consuming the remains of a Zephyrian colony. The mixed fleet included Meridian bioships, Vortani crystal vessels, and a handful of human ships converted. From civilian craft, Colonel Martinez commanded the operation from a modified Earth cargo hauler. Her fleet included everything from Meridian hospital ships to Vortani mining vessels, all of them armed with weapons that made no logical sense. Remember, Martinez broadcast to the entire fleet. We're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're trying to confuse the enemy long enough to hit them with something they can't adapt to. The machines in the Kepler system were massive, having absorbed technology from multiple destroyed worlds. They moved through space in perfect geometric patterns, their forms shifting and adapting as they consumed the remaining orbital installations. The attack began with a Meridian medical ship approaching the largest machine. The ship's transponder identified it as a hospital vessel carrying wounded refugees. The machine ignored it, focusing on more threatening targets. At the last second, the medical ship fired its entire supply of surgical lasers at the machine's core. The weapons were designed for delicate operations, not combat, but they caught the machine completely off guard. Its adaptive systems had no protocols for dealing with medical equipment used as weapons. While the machine tried to process this attack, a Vortani mining ship struck from the opposite direction. Instead of using its sophisticated crystal weapons, the ship rammed the machine with its crude ore processing equipment. The impact scattered refined minerals across the machine's hull, interfering with its energy systems. The battle became a symphony of controlled chaos. Ships attacked from impossible angles, using weapons that no sane military would ever deploy. A Meridian transport ship filled with kelp crops became a biological weapon when it ruptured against a machine's hull. A Vortani passenger liner used its entertainment systems to project confusing light patterns that overloaded the machine's sensors. Human advisors coordinated the madness, directing their alien allies to attack in ways that defied all military logic. When the machines adapted to one tactic, the combined fleet immediately switched to something completely different. "They're learning," Martinez warned as she watched the machines begin to counter some of their attacks. "But they can't adapt fast. Enough. Keep switching tactics." The battle raged for hours, with ships from 3 different species working together in ways that their creators had never imagined. The Meridians learned to fight like human guerrillas, striking quickly and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The Vortani abandoned their mathematical precision and embraced pure instinct. Lieutenant Clark led a boarding party onto one of the smaller machines, using nothing but primitive weapons and explosive charges. The machine's internal defenses were designed to counter advanced technology, not humans with knives and hand grenades. "This is insane," one of the Meridian Marines whispered as they fought their way through the machine's interior. "We're fighting a space-age enemy with Stone-Age weapons." "Exactly," Clark replied, planting another explosive charge. "And that's why it's working." The victory in the Kepler system proved that the human approach could work on a larger scale. The combined fleet had destroyed 3 machines using tactics that the enemy couldn't predict or counter. But the cost was high. Many ships were lost, and the surviving crews were exhausted from fighting in ways that went against their every instinct. As the battle ended, Martinez received reports from other joint operations across the galaxy. Some had been successful. Others had failed completely. The alien crews were struggling to adapt to human tactics, and many couldn't overcome their ingrained military traditions. "We're making progress," Martinez reported to General Campbell, "but it's slow. These species have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Teaching them to fight like humans is like teaching a fish to fly." Campbell nodded grimly. "How? Much time do we have?" "Not long. Our scouts report massive machine formations moving toward the core systems. If we can't get these fleets working together properly, the galaxy's going to fall." The final battle began at the edge of Earth's solar system. Hundreds of massive machines emerged from deep space, their geometric forms larger and more complex than anything seen before. They had consumed the technology of dozens of worlds, growing stronger with each victory. Now they moved toward the heart of human space like a tide of destruction. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terran Alliance. the first ship ever built using both human and alien technology. The vessel looked like no other ship in the galaxy, part Earth engineering and part alien innovation. Human welding techniques held together alien hull materials. Meridian biocomputers worked alongside human electronics. Vortani crystal matrices channeled power through systems that no single species could have created alone. "All ships report ready," his communications officer announced. The officer was a young Zephyrian who had learned to speak in the clipped, efficient style that humans preferred during combat. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the combined fleet. It was the strangest armada ever assembled. Human cargo ships flew alongside Meridian biovessels. Vortani crystal ships moved in formation with converted Earth passenger liners. Mining ships from a dozen different worlds had been turned into improvised warships. General Campbell's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Admiral Morrison, you have authorization to engage the enemy. Good luck to all of you." The machines approached in perfect geometric patterns, their forms shifting through dimensions that hurt to look at. They had learned from every previous battle, adapting their strategies to counter the chaotic human tactics. But they had never faced an entire galaxy fighting together using human methods. Dr. Kate Sullivan worked frantically in her laboratory on Earth, trying to decode the machines' communication signals. As Earth's leading expert on alien technology, she had been studying the geometric forms since the first attacks began. Her latest discovery could change everything. "General Campbell," she called urgently, "I'm picking up structured signals from the machine formation. They're not just attacking randomly. They're following some kind of program, like they're carrying out specific orders." "Orders from who?" Campbell asked. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. But if we can understand their communication system, maybe we can find a way to communicate with them instead of just fighting them." The battle began as the machines entered the outer solar system. Squadron leader Nick Thompson led the first wave of attack ships, a mixed group of human and alien pilots who had trained together for weeks. His own fighter was a hybrid design that combined human maneuverability with Vortani crystal-powered weapons. "Remember," Thompson broadcast to his pilots, "keep them guessing. Use random attack patterns. Switch tactics every few minutes. Don't let them adapt to what we're doing." The dogfights that followed were unlike anything in military history. Human pilots flew impossible maneuvers in ships that responded to thought as much as control inputs. Meridian biofighters moved like living creatures, their organic hulls bending and flexing to avoid enemy fire. Vortani crystal ships reflected laser beams in directions that defied physics. The machines tried to adapt, but the combined tactics were too chaotic to analyze. Every time their systems began to understand one species' fighting style, another would attack from a completely different angle using totally different methods. On the surface of Mars, Colonel Martinez coordinated ground defenses with a mixed force of human Marines and alien warriors. The machines had begun landing geometric forms on the planet's surface, trying to establish a foothold in the solar system. "They're trying to dig in," Martinez reported, "but they're having trouble adapting to our defensive positions." The defenders had learned from human guerrilla warfare tactics. Instead of building traditional fortifications, they had created a maze of tunnels and hidden bunkers that made no logical sense. Attacking forces would find themselves facing defenders who popped up from impossible locations, fired a few shots, and then disappeared again. Sergeant Bobby Chun led a mixed squad of humans and Meridians through the Martian underground. His team used weapons that ranged from human assault rifles to Meridian biospears, switching between them randomly to keep the machines confused. "Contact ahead," Chun whispered into his radio. "Looks like one of the smaller geometric forms trying to set up some kind of processing station." The attack that followed was pure chaos. Human explosives blasted holes in the machine's hull, while Meridian swung through the gaps with primitive weapons. The machine's defensive systems couldn't adapt fast enough to counterattacks that ranged from high-tech missiles to sharp sticks. Back in space, the main battle continued to rage around Earth's orbital stations. Admiral Morrison watched as his hybrid ships engaged the largest machines in brutal close-quarters combat. The fighting was desperate and confused, with ships from different species working together in ways that their designers had never imagined. "Admiral, we're getting reports from Dr. Sullivan," his communications officer announced. "She says she's made a breakthrough with the machine communications." Dr. Sullivan's voice came through the ship's speakers, crackling with excitement and exhaustion. "Admiral, I've figured out what these machines are. They're not invaders. They're maintenance systems designed to prevent galactic civilizations from growing too large and threatening the universe itself." The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. "You're saying they're trying to protect the universe from us?" "Exactly. They were programmed by some ancient civilization to activate when galactic energy output reaches dangerous levels. Kreth War triggered their wake-up protocols. They see our combined civilizations as a threat that needs to be eliminated." Morrison looked at the tactical display, watching human and alien ships fighting desperately against machines that thought. "They were protecting the universe. Can we communicate with them? Make them understand that we're not a threat?" "I'm trying to establish contact now," Sullivan replied, "but their communication system is incredibly complex. It might take time." Time was something they didn't have. The largest machine formation was approaching Earth itself. Geometric forms the size of small moons that could consume entire planets. Morrison ordered all available ships to intercept them, knowing that this would be the decisive moment of the war. The final engagement took place in Earth's upper atmosphere. Ships from across the galaxy fought together against machines that had grown to impossible size and complexity. The battle was visible from the planet's surface as energy weapons lit up the sky like a deadly aurora. Lieutenant Sarah Kim piloted a converted school shuttle that had been armed with mining charges and Vortani crystal weapons. Her co-pilot was a young Meridian who had never seen combat before the machines arrived. Together, they dove toward one of the massive geometric forms, weaving through defensive fire that could have vaporized a battleship. "This is insane," the Meridian said, his gills fluttering with fear. "Welcome to fighting like a human," Kim replied. Arming her improvised weapons, Dr. Sullivan's breakthrough came just as the battle reached its climax. She had finally managed to decode the machines, communication protocols, and established contact with their central intelligence. "I'm through," she announced to the entire fleet. "I can communicate with them." The conversation that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Sullivan explained that the combined civilizations had learned to control their expansion, that they could work together to prevent the kind of universal threat the machines were designed to stop. The machines' response was cautious but interested. They had been programmed to eliminate threats, but they were also designed to preserve intelligent life when possible. The cooperation between human and alien forces, the willingness to fight together and learn from each other, suggested a level of maturity that the machines had never encountered before. Slowly, carefully, a new agreement was reached. The galactic civilizations would restructure their societies based on human principles of cooperation and controlled development. They would form a true alliance that could govern itself responsibly, preventing the kind of unchecked expansion that had triggered the machine's activation. In return, the machines would return to their dormant state, monitoring the galaxy, but no longer actively hunting down technological civilizations. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a negotiation. That changed the galaxy forever. The proud alien species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now looked to human leadership in creating a new form of galactic government. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, now rebuilt as a symbol of cooperation between all galactic species. The station's new design reflected the lessons learned during the war, combining the best technologies from each civilization while maintaining the chaotic, unpredictable elements that made it uniquely human. Below him, young officers from every species in the galaxy trained together in new integrated academies. They learned not just military tactics, but the deeper lessons of cooperation and mutual respect that had saved the galaxy from destruction. The war had taught them all that sometimes the greatest strength came not from superior technology or ancient wisdom, but from the willingness to think differently and work together when facing the impossible.